and in this video, Brazilian Portuguese pronunciation. Let's take a look at the main features of Brazilian Portuguese vowels in the beginning and later the consonants. The vowel system in Portuguese is a little more complex than in most Latin languages. We have something around 7 to maybe 8 vowels. In Portuguese, let's say there is a, there is a closed a, which is e and e, the distinction between e, I, o and o, open and closed, o, the same for e and e, o, e, o, and the u vowel. Let's take a look at the vowel weakening, the unstressed vowel weakening, which makes especially vowel o and e sounds turn into u and e respectively. So o becomes u when it's after the stressed syllable, sometimes even before that. The same goes for the vowel e. The e sound moves to e when it's unstressed, especially after the stressed syllable. So a word like carro, okay, the final o is not carro, carro. Gato, G-A-T-O, but it's not pronounced like G-A-T-U, gato. Pele, skin, pele. So the first e is pé, open, pé, but the final unstressed is always, the unstressed e is always reduced to i, pele. Sangue, blood, sangue. A closed a, whenever the vowel a is before a nasal consonant like n or m, it's closed. So you have sangue. Próximo, which is next or close. Próximo. So you can see that the final o, próximo. Teste. Okay, it's spelled teste, but we say teste. Okay, the final vowel becomes an e, and it also weakens a bit the T. We're gonna see that in the consonants later, so be patient. Brazilian Portuguese, just like European Portuguese, is famous for its nasal sound, especially the nasal diphthongs. Among the hardest are the on. Pay attention to my mouth and listen to my voice. Okay, it starts with a closed a, like in but, like in nut, and then ends in an sound, like in boom, sun, like an ng sound, a nasal twang. Não means no. Mão means hand. Pão means bread. Pão. Eles são, they are. Eles são, they are. There are other nasal diphthongs, such as oins, which is typically the plural of on in many words. Oins. And there's uin, and there's ein, and there's in. And every vowel can occur nasal. And usually in spelling, that's indicated either by a tilde on top of the vowel or by a following nasal consonant that's not actually pronounced consonant, but that consonant is only spelled there. Even though it's there in spelling, that consonant is only there to make the preceding vowel nasal. We're going to see that later in the spelling rules and the consonants. The palatal consonants TG sound. Whenever the T and the D, which are the frontal, dental consonants, whenever they are followed by E, a sound like E, they weaken to Chi and G. That's typical of like more southern Portuguese. Northern Brazilians tend to be a little bit harsher on that pronunciation, a little bit more conservative. They say T and D. But people south of Salvador, Minas Gerais, Rio, São Paulo, all of those people from southeast and southern Brazil, they tend to consistently pronounce, even though southerners, if you go far south of Paraná state, that goes back to pronounce sometimes T and D. So that's more a southeastern Brazilian and central Brazilian feature. But the pronunciation that I'm teaching you here is considered standard. Standard São Paulo Portuguese. The standard São Paulo Portuguese is the pronunciation that is considered to be the most neutral, the most widely accepted, the one that the news readers on television adopt whatever they may be from in Brazil, whatever the regional accent may be. When they read the news on a sound like neutral, they adopt a more or less São Paulo type standard Brazilian pronunciation. That's the one I'm teaching you here as a basic. So a word like tipo, pronounced tipo, T-I-P-O, is pronounced chipo. 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 Tipo, a type. The word for day in Portuguese is dia. 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 Outro dia, another day. Dedicado. Dedicado. So you have the first D there is followed by E. By E. So that E is okay, de. But when the D is followed by E sounds, it's once again palatalized. Dedicado, 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 dedicated. Dedicado, dedicado, dedicado. Once again, the word test, teste, teste. You saw that in the vowel. You know why the vowel weakened from A to E? Because it's unstressed in the end of the word. And now you know that the T, why the T is pronounced like a wet sound, like a shushing sound. Chi, chi, teste, teste. Pode, which is a present tense of the verb can in Portuguese, may, can, is capable of. Pode, pode, ele pode, he can, ele pode, can. Another nasal sound that is interesting is the one that is spelled NH. Okay, most grammar books mistakenly teach that as being equivalent to Spanish N with a tilde. No, the sound has the same origin as the Spanish N with a tilde. It has the same etymological origin, or the GN in Italian or French, like gna, agna, agna, agna. There is a palatal N, but it's not. It's just not the same sound. It's like more like a palatal semi-vowel, ya, which is like the sound of the English Y, but with a nasal overtone on it. So, for example, manha, manha, okay? Manha. See, not manha, 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 manha. My tongue doesn't touch my palate or my teeth in any way, shape, or form. There's no blocking of airflow. So it's not a consonant, it's a vowel, it's a semi-vowel, it's like a nasal semi-vowel. I'd represent it in International Phonetic Alphabet by placing the J letter, which is like ya sound, with a tilde on it. Manha, manha. But since in more simplified fashion, I can actually say that it's a velar sound with a semi-vowel later, like nya, like sing, yeah, sing you, manha. I'm seeing you, I'm killing you, minho. This is more like the closest thing in English there is to it, but it's not exactly the same either. So it's a matter of practicing, but you don't have to get it perfectly. If you pronounce it like Italian or Spanish, like ña, people understand you perfectly. Okay, fronha, which is a pillowcase. Fronha, pillowcase. Ganho, again. Ganho. Bologna, the Italian city. In Italian, it's pronounced Bologna. Bologna, ña. There is a, okay, the tongue touches the front palate, ña, palatal. But in Portuguese, the way we pronounce it, Bologna, ña. My tongue maybe almost touches it, forming a semi-vowel but not a vowel. So it's a softer sound than you find in Italian. The LH is another palatal sound. It has a ya, another one of those wet sounds that we call palatal. They tend to feel soft. So you have malha, which is a type of fabric. Malha. Can also be like a network. Palha. Straw, the type of plant, vegetable. Palha, the straw. Olho, an eye, olho. Okay? So be careful not to mistake with this simple L plus a I sound. Olho is eye. Óleo is an oil. It's almost the same. The biggest difference between the two is that óleo is closed O, óleo, and óleo is open O, óleo. The distinction is very, very thin. The distinction is very slight, but it's there. In addition to the vowels, the pronunciation of individual vowels, the vowel opening, the openness or closeness of vowel of the two central vowels E and O, they're important because they vary from word to word, especially O. Many words from the plural and many verbs, when they're conjugated, depending on the person, may close or open the central vowels. You're going to see that when they see grammar. So be ready. Many words that have an O as a stressed vowel have an O changed to O. So olho is eye, olho. The plural of olho, however, is olhos, eyes. Olhos, meus olhos, my eyes, meus olhos, my eyes, meus olhos. Olhos, olho, olhos. Olho, dois olhos. Olho, dois olhos. When these vowels get an accent mark in spelling, that means that when they are closed, they get the circumflex, and then when they are open, they get the acute accent. That's why the circumflex exists. The circumflex exists to mark the closeness of the O whenever the O has to be marked. It isn't always marked. The accent marks indicate the stressed syllable whenever the stressed syllable is not the last closed syllable. That's the rule. Whenever the syllable is not the last closed syllable, except the syllables that end in S. S doesn't count as closed. But the last closed syllable in a word, and there are a few other rules. I'm going to teach you that when it comes to spelling. Spelling is different from phonetics. We get there. So it has to receive one of those diacritics, one of those accent marks in the writing system. So when they do, we have to pay attention to the openness or closedness of the vowel. So let's learn our first sentence in Brazilian Portuguese. Você tem olhos bonitos. Você tem olhos bonitos. You have beautiful eyes. Você tem olhos bonitos. Você tem olhos bonitos. Você tem olhos bonitos. Você tem olhos bonitos. The CH sound, very simple, like an SH in English, but it's not like Spanish with a ch. Not ch, only sh, without the initial T sound. So we'll spell like CHATO, chato. Chato means boring or flat. Chato. Chato. Achar, ACHAR, the verb to find. Achar. When there is a rare opportunity, a rare case of having to spell out the sound ch, like in the word tchau. Tchau is typically goodbye. Most Brazilians just say goodbye by saying tchau, informally, and which is an Italian word. That's why it has this foreign sound. And in this case, tchau is typically spelling TCHAU. Tchau. Well, because the CH alone is shall. It would be shall. The X letter. And the spelling is, however, a little bit complicated. It can vary a lot. There are many native words or like simple words that evolved within Portuguese where this where this letter sounds more like either like sh or like an s, like a simple plain s sound. Sometimes like a z, sometimes like the original sound it had in Latin, which is a ks, ksa. So a word like xícara is a cup that I drink coffee with, a cup. Xícara. Trouxe, however, is the past tense of the verb to bring. Trazer. Trouxe, he brought. Ele trouxe uma xícara. He brought a cup. Ele trouxe uma xícara. Próximo, we've already seen this word. It has an X in the middle, but it's not pronounced próximo. It's pronounced próximo. Exótico. Exotic. Here you have a TI in the middle as well. The TI makes chi. Exótico. Exótico. Explorar. Explorar. The verb to explore or to exploit. Explorar. The final X, the beginning, the initial X prefix that appears on so many Latin words. So many Latin words have an X in the beginning. This is typically pronounced like es or es in most words. Explorar. Whenever I say explorar, okay, most foreigners make that mistake when they pronounce Portuguese. They sound like they're crazy. Why you go all the way to pronouncing it so hard when it's so easy to say explorar? Explorar, just like it's an S. Explorar. Expressão. Expressão. Expression. Expressão. Here we have a nasal diphthong in the end as well. So try it. Expressão. 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 Uma expressão. An expression. An idiom. Existir. Here the X is followed by a vowel, so it actually acquires the Z sound. Existir. Existir. To exist. To exist. Existir. Existir. The letter L in the beginning of the syllable, it's okay. La, li, lo, lu, no problem. No mystery there. But at the end of a syllable, especially when it's not followed by a vowel, it sounds more like a W sound. It completely loses its consonantal nature and creates almost like a diphthong with the preceding vowel. It becomes almost like a vowel, a semi-vowel, W, just like in English low or blow, mal, badly, poorly, the adverb in a bad manner, mal. Funil, a funnel, where you put liquids in. Funnel, funil. Alto means high or tall. Alto. No alto, no Brazilian say that. Maybe some far southern people in Brazil can maintain that old pronunciation. And maybe some older generation that has some different accents of the past. But in modern Brazilian Portuguese, alto. Palco, the stage where people perform like music or a theater play. Palco. Disponível. Disponível. Disponível, available. Okay? Possível. Okay? It can be possível or possível. Okay? Brazilians go either way. I say possível, do I? I can vary too. Possível. Possible. Possível. Okay, syllables in Brazilian Portuguese can only end in a vowel, or if they do end in a consonant, it can only be S and R. So a word like mar, okay, or paz, okay. But when a word ends in a foreign word has to be important in Portuguese, where the word ends in a B, like let's say Saab, the old Swedish car maker, Saab. People would say Saab. They add the E sound to the end. Cadillac, Facebook. Okay, a word like chocolate. was imported to Portuguese, I don't know how long ago, but we say chocolate. You can end like a chocolate. This is too hard. Brazilians don't like these hard sounds, consonants in the end, so they add a vowel, I, chocolate. Whenever a stressed syllable, especially in these words that are stressed in the end, or one syllable words, or words that are multisyllable but they are stressed in the end, and the vowel that is stressed is followed by a Z or S sound, they form a diphthong. The previous vowel forms a diphthong that ends in E. Like a word spelled P-A-Z, instead of being paz, is usually pronounced paz. Peace. Paz. The word for light in Portuguese is usually pronounced, even though spelled L-U-Z, is usually pronounced luz. Luz. There's a hidden E there. Gás. Gás is the usual pronunciation for gas. Gas, a gas, gaseous substance. Voice, the voice. Sounds exactly like English, voice. You know, the spelling is very different by an amazing coincidence, and ended up being almost the same pronunciation. Voice, voice, voice. Atrás, behind. Atrás. Rapaz, a boy, a young man. Rapaz, rapaz. When these words, however, go to the plural, of course, the Z ceases to belong to the syllable before, it ceases to belong to the previous vowel, and is reinterpreted as belonging to the previous syllable. So the diphthong disappears. A luz becomes as luzes, never as luizes. Nobody will say luizes as the plural of luz. Luz, luzes. Voice, vozes. Gás, gases, never gaises, okay? No, because in that case, the Z sound is interpreted as belonging to the following vowel, not the previous one. So it changes syllable. The R, you may have noticed there in some of the words that the word letter R is pronounced in a way that is a little unusual. Sometimes it's pronounced like an H in English, it's a throaty sound. Something that is, I don't know, nobody knows exactly why. I know that's not restricted to Brazil. European people in Portugal, European Portuguese speakers, they also tend to pronounce the initial R or the geminated R as a throaty sound, a sound like ha, ha. Which would be exactly, some people say that it's more like the Spanish J, but I don't think it is. I think it's more like the English H sound, the very softer ha. So like a word for straight, straight, reto, a straight line, linha reta, reto, reto, vai reto, go straight, reto, reto, rato, rato, a rat or a mouse, rato, say, rato, not rato, no, there isn't that much friction, it's not that heavy. It's not like the Spanish H. It's more like the English A, the Spanish J. It's more like the English A, H. Carro. So when the word is spelled in the middle of the word, but it's geminated, spelled with the two R's together. It's also spelled, pronounced like in the throat. So you say carro, carro, car, carro. Barra, okay, meaning like a rod or a bar, a metal bar, like metal stick. Barra, farra, like a party, fun, partying, fun. Barra, farra, 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 farra. But when the word, when the R is in the middle between vowels and is spelled only as a single standalone R, then it's pronounced like a single tap of the tongue. Like a tiny little tap, like daddy in English, like daddy or caddy or teddy or Betty. Caro, 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 cara, face. Caro means expensive. Cara means face, or it's the feminine of caro as well. Parar, parar, which is to stop. Parto. Okay, in that case, you have the R followed by a consonant, few things going to happen there depending on the region you are in Brazil. But in standard São Paulo Portuguese, the language that I speak, considered standard in Brazil, you say parto. Parto. Only a single tap of the tongue, parto. 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 Carta, a letter that you mail somebody. Carta, I wrote a letter. Escrevi uma carta. 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 Depending on where you are, however, you may hear a strange phenomena there in Rio de Janeiro and most of northern Brazil, especially the northeast. You're going to find people pronounce it also as a throaty H-like sound. So parto. So carta. Carta. In Rio de Janeiro, most people say carta. Carta. And when you go, however, to the countryside of southeastern Brazil, the São Paulo, Minas Gerais, and maybe state of Goiás in central Brazil, and maybe a few other adjacent rural areas in central southeastern Brazil, you find a pronunciation very similar to the American English R. Parto, carta, porta. Porta means a door. I say porta. Somebody in Rio will say porta. Porta. I'm spitting myself here. Porta. Porta. That's a Rio pronunciation. Many northerners will say like this. In Recife, in Natal, Fortaleza. Porta. Porta. I say porta. Somebody a few hundred kilometers from where I live. I live in coastal Brazil, in São Paulo, near São Paulo. But just upstate, even in São Paulo itself, São Paulo has so many migrants from all over the place, but it's not typical of the city. Behind the city, in the countryside, porta, porta, porta. Okay? That's called caipira accent. Caipira is a word for redneck, somebody from the interior. Even though those people are no longer poor, they used to be maybe 100 years ago, but today the countryside of São Paulo, the back states of São Paulo, the upstate São Paulo region is very developed. But that pronunciation is very typical of that region. There's also the famous shushing. I call it shushing. Nobody else does, so don't Google it. You won't find it. Shushing is what I call the phenomenon. It's similar to the R, but it happens to the S. Instead of being a normal S, sibilant sound, S, the S at the end of a syllable in many regions outside, especially in colonial Brazil, which is Rio in the north, tends to be sh, becomes like a shushing sound. So a word like resto, resto. People in Rio will say resto. I say resto, resto. In Rio, people would say resto. Pasta, I say pasta. Some people in Rio and Recife would say pasta. Pasta. Digestão. I say digestão, digestion. Digestão. 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 In Rio, people might say digestão. Digestão. Once again, this is a regional feature not typical of standard Brazilian Portuguese, but widely used, widely found throughout the country, but north of São Paulo mostly. Another interesting feature is in Brazilian pronunciation relative to spelling is that the diphthongs that are spelled as diphthongs OU and EI, or in colloquial speech, pronounced like individual simple vowels. So O is pronounced O, and A, except for a few cases, is pronounced E. So the word that is spelled COURO, meaning leather, is pronounced couro and not couro. Pronunciation couro only occurs in very careful didactic pronunciation. Nobody naturally would say couro, people would say couro. Outro, okay, the spelling gives outro, but it's actually, it means another. Everybody says outro, another, or the other. Peixe, okay, you have peixe, but in pronunciation always peixe, 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 fish. Brasileiro, which is Brazilian. Brasileiro, brasileiro, not brasileiro, brasileiro, okay? If the A is followed by a T or by a vowel, it retains the diphthong nature. So peito, meaning chest or breast. Peito, never peto, peito. Jeito, which means a manner, a way. Jeito. Azeite, which means an olive oil. Olive oil, azeite. Feio, meaning ugly. Feio is always feio. That's a vowel after the diphthong, so you keep the diphthong as a diphthong. You keep it feio.